Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at how to solve some what I would consider fairly simple equations that happen to have a squared in them, which means we're going to be using square roots. Okay, now the first thing we have to ask ourselves is what this right here really means, what that really means, and how do I go backwards. Okay, we have a lot of things we know the opposite of. The opposite of addition is subtraction. We call it inverse, but you can just think what goes backwards, what will undo that. So the inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of multiplication is division. The inverse of squaring something is the square root. Okay, that's what it's for. So we're going to interpret what this means. If I want that square to go away, I'm going to take the square root of this side as its opposite function, and now I'm just left with an x. But remember, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. And the square root of 25 is 5. Now there's something we have to adjust for here. A lot of people can handle that. What they don't realize is every time you take the square root of something in the process of solving for a variable, there's actually two answers. This could be 5 or negative 5. You might ask yourself, well, why is that? Let's go back and look. Is 5 squared equal to 25? Yes. Okay. How about negative 5 squared? Does that equal 25? Yeah, negative 5 times itself still gives us 25. So I get two answers here that work. Okay, and that's something that's a little different to get used to, but every time you take a square root of something, while you're solving for a variable, there's going to be two answers from that moment on, two different numbers. Okay. So in this case, we might write it as x equals positive or negative 5. That little plus and minus there, that's just signifying two answers, but it's kind of the lazy way of writing that right there. Now, what if you see some more stuff there? Well, you have a lot of good instincts already. You've been doing some things with equations for several years now, and now we're going to get to the point where we just do our normal process, what naturally comes to us, and we're going to add in a couple of new techniques when we need them. So in this case, I see this stuff right here. Okay, I know that's there, but before I deal with it, I'm going to try and get this 1 to the other side. I'm going to try to isolate the part that looks complicated. So I'm going to subtract 1 because it's added right here. And that gives me 2x squared equals 32. Now you need to ask yourself at this point, does this 2 out front, does the exponent apply to that 2? And in this case, since there's no parentheses that attach the 2 and the x into one quantity, basically this little squared out front only applies to the x. So what I'm going to do is divide this 2, since it's multiplied right there, divide that out of the way, get it over to the other side. And now I've got x squared equals 16. Hey, now you notice, hey, that looks a whole lot like what we started with over here. So I've made it simpler, a couple of normal processes that I've done a lot before, and now I get it down to just a number squared equals 16. So the opposite of that now would be to take the square root, and I get x equals 4. But remember, I took the square root while I was solving. There's two answers. It could be positive 4 or negative 4.